Time, in our house, was not a fleeting thing. It was a structure we lived inside. I was a horologist, a restorer of antique clocks, and Hannah was an actuary. We were people of precision. We understood risk, we understood mechanisms, and we understood that the future was something you prepared for, not something you stumbled into. For 14 years, our marriage ran with the accuracy of a marine chronometer. We were synchronized. We woke at 6 a.m. We drank tea from the same ceramic mugs. We moved around each other in the kitchen like two gears in a high-complication movement, meshing perfectly, never grinding, transferring energy without friction. There was a profound peace in our predictability. I loved Hannah's reliability. I loved that I knew exactly how she would fold the newspaper, how she would pause before answering a question to weigh the variables. Our life was a hedge against chaos. Outside, the world was messy and unpredictable, but inside our walls, the pendulum swung with a steady, reassuring tick-tock, tick-tock. It was the heartbeat of a healthy organism, or so I thought. 2. Losing time. Entropy is the natural tendency of things to move from order to disorder. It happens to empires, to stars, and to marriages. The shift began with a feeling of drag. The gears were still turning, but the lubricant had dried up. I found myself sitting at my workbench in the evenings, loop in my eye, listening to Hannah watch television in the other room. The sound of her laughter, once a comfort, began to grate on me. It felt repetitive. It felt scripted. I started to feel that our predictability wasn't safety. It was a loop. We were living the same day over and over again. I looked at our future and saw a long, straight corridor with no doors, stretching out until death. "Did you remember to call the plumber?" she asked one night, her voice level, devoid of any urgency. "I did," I said, focusing on the hairspring of a pocket watch. "Good. And the insurance renewal?" "Done." I wanted her to ask me something else. I wanted her to ask me if I was afraid of dying. I wanted her to ask me if I ever wanted to smash the grandfather clock in the hall just to stop the noise. But she didn't. She just turned the page of her book. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like air before a thunderstorm that refuses to break. 3. The escapement. Then I met Corinne. She came into my shop with a broken wristwatch, a cheap, battery-operated thing that I would normally refuse to touch. She was a painter, her hands stained with phthalo blue and cadmium red. She was chaotic. She was late. She laughed too loudly and took up too much space. "It stopped working at 4 a.m., she said, leaning over the counter. I was painting and lost track of time, and then I realized time had actually quit on me. She was the glitch in the system. The affair didn't begin with a decision. It began with a loss of tension. I let my guard down. I started fixing her cheap watches. Then I started delivering them to her studio. Her studio smelled of turpentine and stale wine, a sharp, acidic contrast to the lavender and beeswax smell of my home. With Corinne, time didn't tick. It rushed. It was uneven. We would talk for hours that felt like minutes. She didn't care about the future, she only cared about the now, the visceral sensation of the moment. I slept with her on a mattress on the floor of her studio, surrounded by half-finished canvases. It was uncomfortable. It was messy. It was exhilarating. I felt like a clock that had been overwound, the mainspring tight to the point of snapping, vibrating with potential energy. V. The split second. Living two lives is like trying to keep two clocks in perfect sync across different time zones. It requires constant calculation. I became a master of the alibi. I fabricated delays, invented traffic jams, created fictional clients with complex restoration projects. I would leave Corinne's warm, chaotic bed, check my own watch, and immediately begin the mental calibration required to re-enter Hannah's world. I would walk through my front door and feel the physical weight of the lie settling on my shoulders. I had to slow my pulse. I had to regulate my breathing. "You're late," Hannah would say, looking up from her spreadsheet. The escapement on the Breguet was tricky, I'd lie, the technical jargon acting as a shield. The guilt was like rust. It was slow, corrosive, and silent. I looked at Hannah's trusting face, a face that had witnessed my entire adult life, and felt a wave of nausea. But the nausea wasn't enough to stop me. I needed the contrast. I needed the chaos of Corinne to tolerate the order of Hannah. I was using one woman to survive the other, cannibalizing them both to feed my own ego. V. The mainspring snaps. The discovery was a matter of mechanics. I had been careful with digital evidence, careful with sense, but I had forgotten the one thing I was supposed to be an expert in: routine. Every Sunday night for 14 years, I wound the grandfather clock in the hallway. It was a ritual. It was the heartbeat of the house. I had returned from a weekend conference, a weekend spent in a cabin with Corinne. I was exhausted, depleted, and distracted. I came home, unpacked my bag, and sat down to dinner. Hannah was quiet. She ate her soup with precise, small movements. "How was the conference?" she asked. "Good. Informative. Lots of talk about synthetic lubricants." "I see." She put her spoon down. The metal clicked against the ceramic. "The clock stopped, Elias." I froze. "What?" "The grandfather clock. It stopped at 3:15 yesterday afternoon. You didn't wind it before you left." It was such a small thing, a forgotten chore. But in our life, where every variable was accounted for, it was a seismic event. I must have forgot," I stammered. "I was rushing to catch the train." Hannah looked at me. Her eyes were dry, clear, and terrifyingly intelligent. She was an actuary. She calculated probability. She looked at the anomaly, the unwound clock, the vague details of my trip, the subtle distance in my eyes for the last 6 months, and she solved the equation. "You never forget," she said softly. "In 14 years, you have never once forgotten to wind that clock. You didn't forget, Elias. You just didn't care anymore." She didn't ask if there was someone else. She didn't need to. The fact that I had let the time run out in our home was answer enough. 6. Static. I live in a silence that has no rhythm now. The apartment I rent is modern. The clocks are digital. They glow with neon numbers that change without sound. There is no ticking. There is no heartbeat. Corinne and I burned out quickly. Without the illicit thrill, the chaos just became exhausting. I realized too late that you cannot build a life on an explosion. I went back to the house once to pick up my tools. Hannah was at work. The house was immaculate. The grandfather clock in the hall stood silent, the pendulum motionless in the glass case. It looked like a corpse. I reached for the key to wind it, a reflex, a muscle memory, but stopped my hand midair. It wasn't my time anymore. I had broken the mechanism. I had forced a gear where it didn't fit and stripped the teeth from the wheel. I stood in the hallway for a long time, listening to the ringing in my ears. I realized then that the boredom I had run from was actually the sound of endurance. It was the sound of something working. I walked out the door and left, The clock stopped at whatever time it had died. I stepped out into the street, checked my wrist, and realized I didn't care what time it was. It didn't matter. I had all the time in the world now, and nothing to measure it against.